Okay, this is gonna be tough. Picking anime of the year isn't usually too difficult. You just pick whichever show you enjoyed or that impacted you the most, and that's that. But this year, more than any, it's really fucking difficult. See, I could sit here and tell you Mushoku Tensei is anime of the year for its amazing story, beautiful sound design, and flawed yet equally lovable cast. But who's to say that any of that's better than ReZero Season 2, which built on the incredible story we left off at the end of Season 1 and took it to an even more emotional and hard-hitting places? But then who's to say any of that's better than a story of a man trying to overthrow a whole country by himself, abandoning the friends we've grown to love and care for throughout the years, just to achieve his goal? What I'm trying to get at here is there's just way too many to choose from this year. But I want to talk about some of the shows that really stood out this year and let my thoughts out on them to determine what really deserves the title of Anime of the Year. Firstly, let's look at Wonder Egg Priority. Wonder Egg Priority, while having one of the weirdest names ever, is jam-packed full of one of the most random and interesting stories I've ever witnessed. Our main character, Ioto, is transported to a random high school after having a conversation with a ladybug and finds these two girls drawing cryptic messages on their locker. Hold on. I know I lost some of you there, but hey, just come on. Stick with it here. It's random, I know, but it's really good. You gotta trust me on this. So basically, I has this egg, and a roll of toilet paper starts talking to her and tells her to break it, and uh-oh, it's a girl inside, cause why not, honestly? Then these evil little gnome-looking things hunt down the girl, I protects her, and she vanishes. End of episode 1. Yeah, it's a bit crazy. But its absurdness is really just on the surface level, because if you give the show a chance, you'll start to realize more of what's really going on here. While I have seen the whole show, I can't sit here and lie to you and tell you I understood every little part of it, but I understood the message it was trying to send. At its core, Wonder Egg Priority is about mental health and suicide. While you might have thought at first glance from my explanation it was just a wacky and weird fantasy, in actuality it's a deep show about suicidal teenage girls and coping with loss. There's a real world message to be found here, and the way that the show handles Ai's trauma is really well done. At the end of the day, these weird adventures and protecting these different girls that she has to do is really just so that way she has a chance of getting her friend back. She was a social outcast who always got bullied because of her eyes being different colored, and when she finally found a friend, that same friend ended up committing suicide for an unknown reason. Wonder Egg Priority was really the show that taught me to never judge a book by its cover in anime, because even if it looks weird on a first glance, there could be a lot more lying underneath that you just don't see yet. Anyway, since we're on the topic of never judging a book by its cover, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about Odd Taxi. If Wonder Egg Priority was the show that made me realize to never judge a book by its cover, then Odd Taxi was the show that confirmed it. Because when you look at Odd Taxi, what do you think? You probably think, ew, furry shit, get that off my screen, that's gross. And that's where I realized you just gotta be a lot more open-minded when it comes to anime, because like, when I tell you on an objective level, Odd Taxi had the single best written story of the year, I'm not kidding. So, what's the show about? At the core of it, it's about a taxi driver who ends up getting intertwined into a missing persons case. And that's it. Seems like a pretty simple story, right? Well, it is until the further you get along into it. See, the first few episodes are really just about the main character, Otokawa, interacting with different passengers and his friend. The more episodes that go on, the more different characters start involving themselves with each other, until eventually, basically everyone you've met is now a part of this mystery. For an example of why the story was so well written, I want to use a point that Garnt made in this video talking about the show, which is the idea of the Chekhov's gun. Chekhov's gun essentially means that everything brought up in a story should have a purpose at some point and nothing should be unnecessary. As Anton Chekhov states, if you say in the first chapter there's a rifle hanging on the wall, in the second or third chapter that rifle must go off. Odd Taxi has potentially the greatest use of that concept in any show I've ever seen. Every little bit of information you're given, no matter how small it seemingly is when you first get it, ends up having a bigger purpose later on. Odd Taxi somehow balances what feels like a million different storylines and story arcs that are all separate and distinct, and eventually end up painting one cohesive picture of what happened by the end of it all. And minor spoilers, even the fact that they're animals is a Chekhov's gun when you realize it isn't just some stylization choice they've made, but instead a genuine plot point that the story has later on. Anyway, I've given Odd Taxi enough of your time. Please go watch it. It's genuinely one of the most engrossing and overlooked shows of the year. It's worth your time, seriously. On to the next show, which is Mushoku Tensei. As of when I'm writing the script, it just aired its final episode a few days ago, and like, my god, was that whole show just so fucking good. While being very controversial at times with the way the main character Rudy acts, it was able to balance that out really well with one of the most interesting stories I've ever watched. A shut-in otaku that has never done anything good with his life skips out on his own parents' funeral and is thrown out of his house by his disgusted relatives. As his depression and the severity of the situation hit him, he sees a truck about to hit some people and he finally decides to do something good with his life and knocks them out of the way to save them, which leads to him getting hit instead. In typical isekai fashion, he's then transported into a new fantasy world, and since he has the mind of a 30-year-old man but in a kid's body, he's able to start doing magic way earlier than a typical kid and becomes extremely good at an early age. The first half of the show just focuses mainly on your typical isekai stuff that most anime fans are very used to by now. But what sets Mushoku Tensei apart from all those generic isekai out there is a very important incident that happens at the halfway point. Once this certain incident happens, the whole show is suddenly very different and takes a very big, mature, and fucked up turn as the episodes go by. Also, just watch this clip from the Ruijerd vs Orsted fight. This fight is so sick. 'll stop my analysis here to avoid spoilers, but just know that all these episodes on screen right here are episodes I consider legitimately 10 out of 10 masterpieces. If that doesn't prove how amazing the show gets in the second half, then I don't know what to tell you, dog. It's genuinely a masterpiece of the isekai genre that is only really rivaled by Re:Zero. And speaking of Re:Zero, why don't we shift gears and talk about Re:Zero Season 2? Now, since this is a Season 2, it's hard to talk about this without spoiling plot points from Season 1, so I'm going to be as vague about this as possible, but Season 2 basically just does exactly what you would want a Season 2 of a show to do. It takes everything that was shown in Season 1 and ups the quality while also adding a lot of new information and characters. The emotion, the premise, the characters, the stakes, it all builds off of Season 1 perfectly, and this season has one of the best episodes of any show I've ever seen with father and child. Genuinely, that episode's like an 11 out of 10. Like, I didn't even appreciate it when I watched it the first time that much, but then I just recently rewatched it. Holy fucking shit, that episode is god tier. If it wasn't for one very important thing that's noticeably missing throughout the whole season, which anyone who's seen the show will know exactly what I mean, it would have been in my number one spot without a doubt in my mind, but even with that being said, it's still one of the best seasons of any show I've ever seen. Seriously, like, give that show a watch if you haven't, it's quality. Alright, Tokyo Revengers is up next, and I gotta say, I really like Tokyo Revengers. As far as I know, the manga was pretty much mostly unknown, but once the anime came out, the show skyrocketed to around the same level of popularity as the big dogs like Jujutsu Kaisen and Demon Slayer, which I think is honestly deserved. It's really good. The show follows Takamichi, who used to be a gang member back in the day, who now has no part in any of that, but is for some reason shoved onto train tracks while an oncoming train comes. He's then teleported back in time to his gang member days in middle school as he joins a more well-known and violent gang, Toman, and becomes friends with the two leaders Mikey and Drakon, which is all an effort to save his girlfriend from his middle school days from eventually being killed by a rival gang leader. Genuinely, I think this is one of the best new gen shonens to come out, and I think the reason I like it so much is because it's so much like Re:Zero and Erase, which are two of my favorite shows. Although Takamichi as a main character can be very annoying at times because he cries literally every episode, the other characters are really what makes it as good as it is. Both Mikey and Drakon are two of my favorite new gen characters, and Tachibana is a really lovable main girl. And the backstory of the two quote-unquote villains of the latter half of the season was really tragic and believable to why they end up the way they are now. All in all, the show is definitely a contender for Anime of the Year, definitely worth checking out. I think it has the potential when more seasons come out to become like really well respected and loved, because it has really good foundations right now, so I hope they really build on it. Alright, next up I'm going to talk about Attack on Titan Season 4. This is another case like Re:Zero, where obviously since it's a Season 4, so I can't really talk about it much without spoiling previous seasons, but just know that this season in particular of AOT is literally just incredible. It takes what was already a top tier shonen battle anime and flips it around to the point of where it doesn't even feel like a shonen at all anymore, but more of like a political thriller. which if you know anything about me, I love those fucking shows. Shows that focus on like overthrowing governments and shit like that, I find so fucking cool. So for me, season 4 of AOT is literally just perfect, really. I mean, the only thing I could even complain about slightly is that the Titans are CGI instead of hand-drawn like the first season, but it's not even like bad, so I can't even complain that much. The way I see it is like I'd rather take this on screen than the Colossal Titan from season 3 any day. Other than that, I really don't have much to say other than it's like a basically perfect season to already almost perfect show, and if you for some reason haven't watched Attack on Titan by now, like, come on, seriously, do it. You'll literally just be treating yourself. It's so good. Next, we'll move on to Quintuplet Season 2, which was definitely the best slice of life and pure romance that came out this year. It doesn't have the flashy fight scenes like a shonen or deep philosophical moments or anything like that, but Quince was just the most honest, wholesome fun I got out of a show this year. I know some people don't find slice of life and romances interesting out there, which is fine, but not everything is going to be everyone's cup of tea, you just gotta kind of accept that, but for the people that do genuinely like those types of shows out there, this is literally a perfect show to watch. The show follows the protagonist Futaro as he's in need of money when he bumps into a girl named Itsuki at his school. They talk for a bit and he ends up getting her pissed off at him by the end of it. He then gets an opportunity by a wealthy man to tutor his 5 quintuplet daughters at his school for a good amount of money. He accepts the offer, and wouldn't you know it, it's the same girl he pissed off before and her 4 sisters. The show really just basically revolves around Futaro trying his best to tutor these girls that hate him at first, but as time goes on and he spends more time with each of the girls, each of them start to like him more and more. The show wasn't meant to be taken as some genius level IQ show that'll test the boundaries of what anime can do or anything, but it's just genuine fun to see these character relationships build and in some cases come crumbling down. By the end of it, you end up caring for all 5 girls. Wait, no, that's not right. You end up caring for 4 of the girls, and they each deserve to get with Futaro in their own way. At the end of the day, like I said, this won't be for everyone, but if you want a nice and wholesome show that'll leave you caring for a bunch of characters by the end of it, then this is really the show for you. Okay, to wrap up this video, why don't we end it with the worst anime I've ever seen, which is, of course, Promised Neverland Season 2. This is the single biggest disappointment the anime community has ever seen. It literally takes season 1, which for me and a lot of other people out there was a legitimately perfect show, and they just absolutely fuck it over. I'm gonna be mentioning spoilers, by the way, so if you don't want to be spoiled on how season 1 ended, because, that's like a genuinely good, season of a show that you should watch, then skip to the timestamp on screen. So, what's so bad about Promised Neverland Season 2? Well, let me explain. So in the beginning of season 2, after they finally escaped from the house, it was actually pretty decent for 2 episodes, it was fine. But then the cracks start showing, alright? For one, the studio decides to make the genius decision of scrapping a very important character, Yugo, that the gang is supposed to meet when they reach their bunker, but you know what, maybe they decide, they just don't need him in their adaptation, whatever, that's fine, I can live with that. But then they decide, oh, let's just skip the next few arcs that happen in the manga and act like they never happened. Literally, the next arc that was going to be animated was going to be the Goldie Pond arc that the manga readers love so much, but they had the brilliant idea to just skip it along with a couple other arcs too. So after all that, there's a time skip, and when Emma and Ray get caught out in a demon village, guess who's the one that caught them? Yeah, fucking Norman, who was supposed to be dead from the last season, cause, why the fuck not? Now, I get that part's actually manga canon and he's supposed to be alive, but I don't even care, I think it's dumb. So Emma and Norman have a chat and catch up a bit after being separated for so long, and Norman explains that instead of being eaten by a demon, which is what we all thought happened at the end of season 1, he was taken to a testing facility where he was experimented on for years. And then he says the most bullshit thing in existence, which is that he created a drug that can kill any demon. As far as I know, that's completely anime original. That's not in the manga. After that clusterfuck of a conversation, Norman wants to obviously kill all the demons for what they've done to him, which is, pretty understandable, right? But Emma says she wants to live in a world where they can all live together peacefully. I'm sorry, what? Get that shit out of here, dude. And going back to Norman here, this pussy starts setting fire to a whole town of demons behind Emma's back, but then when he tries to kill a single little demon kid, he can't bring himself to do it because, I shit you not, it has the same name as Emma. You actually can't make this shit up! Oh wait, never mind, you can, because some high as fuck team at Cloverworks already did. Anyway, Emma and the gang sneak inside the orphanage again for some reason and are stopped by a bunch of the sisters and Isabella with literal fucking guns. But then Isabella, even though she's sold off so many kids throughout her lifetime and probably almost was killed by the higher ups because of her failure to keep the kids at the orphanage, for some reason decides to side with the group because why not at this point, right? The group then finds a portal under the orphanage that seemingly leads to a separate world that doesn't have demons in it at all. As everyone's entering the portal, Emma, Norman, and Ray decide to stay and try to change this world. Okay, now look, I can maybe understand Emma doing this because she's just a dumbass and wants to, save all the demons, live in harmony, yada yada yada, all that shit. But what are Ray and Norman's motivations for staying back? Well, I don't know. And I'm not even sure the people who came up with this dumbass script know. It's all just stupid. It doesn't make sense. So, how are they gonna make the demon world better, you're probably asking? Well, apparently this one demon has special blood that makes demons semi-human and not feel the need to eat humans anymore. Like, bro, what the fuck is happening? And if all of that wasn't shitty enough for you, to pour salt into the wound, the show gives us a 1.5-minute slideshow of what Emma and Norman apparently do in the manga to end off the series. They don't even animate it. These are still fucking frames that are on screen. And that's it. That's legitimately how it ends. Fuck this season. It's so horseshit, and legit somehow was able to make every single wrong decision possible to make the worst season I've ever seen. It's literally such a tragedy too, because season 1 was like pretty much a masterpiece. Like, that had you questioning everything all the time, kept you on the edge of your seat, but this was nothing but a waste of my goddamn time. Okay, now that I got that rant out of the way, sorry, I want to get back on a positive note here. Like I said before, choosing this year anime of the year is just too difficult, and I really can't pinpoint what deserves it the most. But you know what? I'm happy with allowing any single one of these ones I mentioned to be anime of the year, and that's how I'll end it. This was actually a pretty fun video. I might start posting more and making videos, but don't quote me on that because I don't know. Not really too good at nailing down the whole ending part to my videos, but you know what? We'll just end it right here. See you later. Hope you enjoyed the video. Peace.